Draft Mechanic is a proud member of Punchboard Media. Pull up a chair at punchboardmedia.com. Draft Mechanic, episode 105.
On this episode of Draft Mechanic, we've got a heaping helping of news and Kickstarter updates. We discuss recent plays of Proving Grounds and Aerion. We've got a 6-pack review of Blue Lagoon, which we're also putting on tap. And we've got a Beer Traveler segment from Jake's many weeks of traveling recently. So sit back, relax, grab a pint, and enjoy the show.
You've seen the future and it works to take a mile. No day, all is for the best in the best of our
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Draft Mechanic. I'm Jake.
And I'm Danielle.
And Draft Mechanic is the podcast about board games and craft beer and anything we can do to tie the two together.
Here at Draft Mechanic, we like our beer like we like our board games.
Maybe just by yourself every now and then?
Yeah, sometimes
That's totally fine.
It's okay to have a beer by yourself. It's okay to play a game by yourself.
And this episode has kind of come around because of a lot of solo adventuring. I went on a bunch of work trips and ended me up in a lot of places. We're talking about 2 different solo board games in our recent
Jake?
plays. I'm Jake. I'm right here. I promise. It's always been me. And we've also got Blue Lagoon, which is a game in which you are controlling areas, but maybe it's a good idea for you just to go off and do your own thing in that game sometimes. But hey, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time, you can always find more information about us on the internet at draftmechanic.net or go to Draft Mechanic or at Draft Mechanic on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the usual places that you would use the internet.
We've also got a Board Game Geek Guild. That is guild number 2470. If you have any thoughts about what we're saying in this episode, that would be the place to share them, or at least one of the places.
It's a good place for that.
And if you happen to be in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, we would love for you to come out to one of our bi-monthly meetups. Normally we do them on the first Thursday of every month at Good Road Cider Works and the third Tuesday of every month at Salud Cerveceria. We are going to be doing the Salud one as scheduled in August, but the first Thursday of August is during Gen Con. And we will be at Gen Con, which if you've listened to any of the episodes in the past, 6 months or so, you have heard Jake lamenting Gen Con planning. So we will be at Gen Con, so we will not be having our meetup at Good Road this month. Mm-hmm. But we will in September.
Yes, and if you would like to, by the way, if you are going to Gen Con and want to say hey, you will undoubtedly find us near the Sun King Beer Garden on Wednesday when they tap the new beer, and the rest of the week floating around wearing some Draft Mechanic t-shirts. So if you do see a Draft Mechanic t-shirt in the wild, say hi. And if they're like, hi, you recognize this t-shirt? It's probably me or Danielle. Or Shane. Shane might wear his t-shirt.
It might be.
Yes.
I mean, is Patrick coming? Because I know Patrick's got a t-shirt.
Patrick might wear a t-shirt. There's a number of t-shirts in the world, but what I'm trying to say is come and say hey, or tweet at me, or, we'll meet up and we'll have a beer and or game and or awkward conversation.
I think we're losing the plot here.
So as it is related to that particular point, a little bit of show news. The first one, we're going to be doing 2 special episodes the next 2 weeks. Instead of just coming back right after Gen Con with our typical live episode, and instead of putting the hype list into this episode, we said, let's just make the hype list its own episode. It'll be a little shorter. It'll be a little fun. We'll talk about what we're most excited about coming into Gen Con. And hopefully in the final round of that episode, we'll also hear from some of you dear listeners.
Yeah, we really like to put out that hype list episode on the week of Gen Con so that if anybody is traveling too, they have a chance to listen to it on their way up. And it's really relevant. We can get the most games that are added to that list that is up on BGG as possible. Because I'm sure that there are going to be tons of games that come out between when we're recording this episode and Gen Con.
Oh, yeah.
So we'd like to get it in real close there. So we will be giving you an extra bonus episode next week.
Yeah, I remember actually last year delaying that 1 week helped out really well because we were able to get Chris Kirkman to come on and talk about Twilight Imperium 4 because it was announced like 2 days before we dropped that episode, and we saved that episode just kind of out of convenience, and it worked out really well. So who knows, maybe we'll have something really cool to talk about this time next week, and we'll all geek out about it, and you can geek out about it as well.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the only way to talk about Gen Con is to geek out.
It's true. So look for that next week, and then our traditional week or daily Gen Con recap episodes that we do at the end of each day will be an episode just after Gen Con, the Monday after Gen Con, as usual.
Up a little later than normal, I would imagine, because we normally get back around like 3 a.m. from Gen Con, so you'll be putting that together the Monday instead of a Sunday.
Look out for those. In additional draft mechanic related news, I would like to announce that there is a new t-shirt available. I have this piece of art that I got from our friends over at Gray Fox Games. It's some artwork that they were going to use for After the Empire, which is an upcoming tower defense game that they've got coming to Kickstarter in a few months. And just imagine you had the most thematic Euro kind of artwork you can think of, except it's super leaning into the Euro thing. And what I'm talking about here is imagine you have a knight or something from a medieval era, but his body is a cube, because that's what they are represented as in After the Empire. It's very adorable.
This actually reminds me of when I was in 5th grade and I dressed up as a die for Halloween. So I had a big cardboard box with armholes and leg holes. And
It's harder than you think.
it was incredibly difficult to sit in my little elementary school chair wearing that. That's for dang sure.
I remember my one Halloween as a Lego man, and I commiserate with your experiences. But,
Yes. So if you'd like to buy a t-shirt of someone who looks like they are a cube, but they are also a human, that says thematic Euros on it.
Yes.
We now sell one. Sure do.
So big thanks to Gray Fox Games, and especially the artist Cole Munro Chitty, who did the original art piece there, is allowing us to use it for this shirt. I find it adorable, and I hope that some of you out there do as well. You can go to draftmechanic.net, or it's redbubble.com/people/draftmechanic/shop, or you can just go to draftmechanic.net, and it's really easy to just do that. So just do that. Mm-hmm. Moving on to games news. As you may or may not know, Gen Con is close.
I mean, if you don't know, you have short-term memory loss,
Or
and
just
you should
decided
see
to
a
come
doctor.
You've decided to come into board games from this episode, and now you know Gen Con.
We've already talked about it.
Oh,
this
yeah, so
episode.
you got no excuses. Anyway, the Gen Con Geek Preview list is 572 titles as of recorded. I have 96 titles that I have rated in the must-have or interested categories so far, of which 66 are for sale. I'm not buying 66 games, I promise.
No, you're not. I think I have like 82 that I had any interest whatsoever in.
Yeah.
And that includes stuff that I'm not necessarily going to be buying, but just wanted to see what it was. Either the description sounded interesting but wasn't really thorough, or I was sort of on the fence about it.
So what do you think, Danielle? In the next 7 days, are we going to get that total up to 650? Is that a good over-under?
Wouldn't surprise me.
Okay, I'll take the over on that one. You take the under.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
In other game-related news, specifically the electronic type, I have two interesting pieces of electronic entertainment news. One is that the digital edition of Gloomhaven went into early access on Steam this week, which,
Dang.
like, I didn't even know that was coming that quickly, but it is there and it's available. You can hop on for $25 and get at that.
Now, is this the digital edition of Gloomhaven, or is this the Gloomhaven-themed game that Asmodee Digital was talking about releasing when we talked to them at Gen Con last year?
I'm kind of thinking it's kind of right in the space between. It definitely looks like it's still Gloomhaven, but it doesn't look just like a board game. This is like fully 3D rendered, 3D environments, and this massive, like, graphical user interface system. It looks really, really complex, but it looks like all the mechanics are still Gloomhaven. You're still moving your pieces around on a particular grid, and there's still a lot of card play and a lot of character customization that is similar to that. So I'm actually kind of interested in this because Gloomhaven is one of the games that I find very interesting and I would love to play, but I have no chance whatsoever to do so. So a mobile version, not a mobile version, but a computer version of that you can throw on a laptop and take with you and play solo is actually a really smart idea. I'm kind of wondering if this is going to be the big quote-unquote crossover success for board games going digital that I think Asmodee has kind of been hunting for a while.
Now, does Steam run on a Mac?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I don't know.
Yeah. Steam runs on Mac. I played Portal back in the day on there, and Braid and all that good stuff.
Okay, so you can play Gloomhaven by yourself.
I don't know. This 11-year-old MacBook Air is doing as good as it can.
Don't let it hear you.
You keep going, little Mac. We trust you. So that's interesting. If you're interested in that, or if you've already downloaded and played it, let us know how it is, because chances are I'm not going to actually get to play this at any time, and I would love to hear some people talk about it. The other one is kind of a bummer, and this is especially a bummer to me because you've heard over the last few episodes me talking about playing Terraforming Mars, the preview edition on my phone. I just found out, we just learned this week that Luckyhammers, the studio that is developing Terraforming Mars Digital, went under. They shut down. Obviously, the worst thing about this is 70 designers and team members are now out of a job. And
yes.
Yeah,
that is the worst thing by
that
far.
That sucks, and I really hope that they're able to find new places to go because I was really enjoying the work that they had done. Obviously, in terms of playing board games, the bummer here is that Terraforming Mars Mobile was really close to getting released, and it looks like that's just kind of be in purgatory for a little while. They are also apparently working on a Mansions of Madness adventure game, which is in that universe, but not actually a Mansions of Madness game. I am not too terribly worried that these are not going to see the light of day ever, because Asmodee, as previously discussed, does have quote-unquote the money and can probably find another developer to take that on, because obviously Asmodee owns all of the rights to both of these games for digital implementation at least. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure we're going to see them eventually, but it is kind of a bummer that Terraforming Mars is probably going to be a little longer than expected, especially because my preview edition runs out in 6 days.
Oh, well.
Oh, well, there's a few other games in the world to play.
Also, in 6 days, you're going to be a little busy.
Oh, that's very true. In 5 days, you're going to have a new Fire Emblem game to play. That's exciting.
True, but I won't have time to do it.
Yeah, true. Another new interesting release. There's another expansion pack for Villainous coming out. We talked about Villainous roughly this time last year. Found it to be a good game that probably takes way too long. Mm-hmm. So this new pack has Scar from The Lion King, Yzma from The Emperor's New Groove, there was a cheer for the entire world, and Ratigan from The Great Mouse Detective. I am super excited to see how they play. I doubt that I'll be picking this up because we've, not touched Villainous since fall last year. But it is cool to see that they're continuing to support this. Obviously, Disney probably is going to release one of these packs anytime they have another movie coming out that they can bundle some stuff with.
I don't know. They've got, another 1 or 2 coming out this year, at least, with the live action versions.
Mm-hmm. I think Mulan comes out later this year, and Little Mermaid just got casted.
Yeah.
So maybe that'll be early next year. But I don't
Ursula's already in the first thing.
Yeah, true. So who knows what else we'll see, but I would not be surprised to continue to see more of them. And I do like the fact that each of these 3-player boxes can be played just by themselves. They're standalone. That was a smart move.
Yeah.
The final bit of news, and this is something that will come to a head at Gen Con actually, is the announcement of the 4 nominees for the Diana Jones Award. This is presented annually to the person, product, company, event, movement, or any other thing that has, in the opinion of its committee, best demonstrated the quality of excellence in the world of hobby gaming in the previous year. Obviously, this is copy from their an announcement.
No, you didn't just make that up?
I just made that up on the fly. Anyway, the nominees this year are a book entitled Dungeons & Dragons, The Art of Arcana. There is Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr from Hub Games, The Mind from NSV and Pandasaurus, and Starcross from Bully Pulpit Games. This is a really interesting set of stuff, and it really, I'm excited to see it kind of leaning towards just games themselves. And I guess, obviously, the D&D book. In the past, we've had things like Gen Con was a winner. Eric Lang won one year. And these are obviously things that have contributed a lot and had a lot of excellence to board gaming and hobby gaming in general. But these are some really cool nominees. And it's the first time I've really kind of been interested in seeing how this award shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, I have my favorite, which I would love to win, which is Starcrossed. I absolutely love that, having seen how that plays not only in the one-shot playthrough that they did on their podcast, but also having looked through it because we backed the Kickstarter campaign for this. It's a really interesting 2-player RPG that uses a Jenga tower in this sort of the same way that Dread does, but instead of everybody dying, you are managing a generally non-traditional relationship. And it's just a really interesting game that does something that I have not seen anywhere else.
And I'm really hoping that Holding On, The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr gets a nod, because while it's a game that we have not had a chance to play yet, the concept of it is exceptional, and I love it, and I want to know more about that, and I'm really excited to see that continuing to pick up steam. And maybe this is something that can kind of start pushing games into a new space in terms of this is not just a game of mechanics, this is a game that's trying to tell a story. And that's something I would just love to see.
We'll have to wait and find out.
Well, in terms of hard, cold facts, I do have hard, cold facts right now. Or at least, rather, Danielle, you do, because you have the Kickstarter updates in hand.
I was going to say, who's got facts now?
Everybody's got facts. You got the most pressing, relevant facts, though.
Okay. Our first Kickstarter update is that Always Green Garden has actually canceled their Kickstarter. We talked about this last episode, but they are going to be bringing this back to Kickstarter a little bit later. I think later this year, you said?
September is what he's aiming for now.
Okay, but that Kickstarter is no longer there, so if you did back it, then you should not be expecting your money to be removed. And if you were planning on backing it, that's why you won't get a notification.
Yep.
Darwinauts from Green Couch Games has completed with $38,556 of their $18,000 goal with 836 backers. They unlocked a lot of cool stretch goals like upgraded tokens and promo cards. The Board Game Bags and Calendar Kickstarter from BoardGameTables.com completed at $319,700 of their $1,000 goal with 6,289 backers. There are late pledges available on their Kickstarter page if you still want to get in on this.
Mm-hmm.
Classy Dice Buddies from Double Feature is funding at $764 of their $517 goal with 29 backers, ending on Saturday, July 27th. You can buy those cute pins still. So
Get them.
If you'd like to get... these are the ones that are the role-playing classes, correct?
Yeah, different classes.
So if you would like to get those, you can still do it.
And if more people get in on that, we unlock more classes, and then I can get more pins of classes.
And just to put in a little self-promo here, Double Feature did help design our pin. So if you would like a Draft Mechanic pint glass with a little D6 in it, we have that pin that you can get from us at Gen Con.
Yay.
And our final Kickstarter update on previous projects is the Isle of Cats from the City of Games, which is currently funding at $439,839 of its $18,753 goal, with 6,025 backers. This is ending on Thursday, July 25th. The stretch goals so far include a ton of custom cat meeples, which is always good, more cards, and more cat polyomino tiles. Cats.
Yes. Like 100 cat meeples. That's a lot.
What are you even going to do with that many cat meeples?
Make a pile of cat meeples and then roll around in it?
No, like functionally, is there a thing in the game that you do with the cat meeples?
Yeah,
or is
you
it...
use them to, get tiles and
Oh, okay.
move stuff and, cat meeples and build a tower of cats. I have what might be the largest crop of new projects we've ever discussed on a particular episode. And it's a lot, honestly, a lot of this is because some of these are really short projects that actually launched like the day after our last episode and they end before our next episode. So I wanted to talk about all of them. So we're just going to go at it and have a nice little extended Kickstarter segment this week.
Move quick.
All right. First off, Pret-a-Porter, 3rd edition from Portal Games, currently going at $255,000 of its $35,000 goal with 4,523 backers. This one ends later today, Monday, July 22nd, if you are listening to this on day of release. If not, I'm sorry, but it was physically not possible for us to talk about this sooner. It has an estimated delivery of October 2019. It's $60 to back it, $89 if you want it signed, and also a poster of the cover artwork. So this is the 3rd edition of a long sought-after heavy economic game about making it in the fashion industry. Thankfully, Ignacy didn't retheme it, and additionally, Quanchai did the art, so you know it's going to be hot, 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 hot. Also, unsurprisingly, the stretch goals so far, they have upgraded components, additional content, and there's also some additional content that has guest artists like Ryan Lockett and Piero doing card sets for different fashion stuff.
Cool. Just so you know, I meant move quick if you're going to back these games, not that you need to describe them quickly.
Everybody, we're running out of time. It's real-time Kickstarter segment. Now, to slow it down a bit, though, this is one that I feel like we've always kind of wanted to get in. Heavy economic game with a really cool, exciting theme, and I've heard great things about it from people who have played Pret-a-Porter in the past.
I remember when we first really got into modern board games, our local board game store had a copy of this on their shelf for a minute, but it was well beyond the realm of games that we were playing at the time. We were playing stuff like, Carcassonne and Ticket to Ride and that type of game. We had just gotten into board gaming. So they had this for a second, and I remember seeing it and being like, "Oh, what is this? This looks interesting. I don't remember seeing anything like this." And now, for a long time, I was like, "Oh, why did I not buy that? You can't find it." And now I'm really happy because the new art is absolutely gorgeous.
Quanchai, you rock. As always. I mean, I feel like every time we talk about a game that Quanchai does art for, we're singing its praises. So, it looks so good.
Well, it's particularly relevant in this, because, I mean, it's a game about fashion design. You want the design to be really pretty.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, hopefully we'll see that soon. Obviously, that was like a first day back for us. We're super excited to get this one. Woo. And if you are too, you can also back Pret-a-Porter 3rd edition. Next up, how perfectly timed is this? Dice Hospital Community Care, which is a new 3-pack expansion for Dice Hospital. It's funny because we were just talking about this on our last episode. It broke into your 2018 Redux list of one of your favorite games from last year, and we were lamenting how we couldn't get the 3-dimensional ambulance things and all that stuff. But I'm glad to tell you, Dice Hospital is on Kickstarter right now. It is currently funding at $128,000 of its $15,000 goal with 2,470 backers. This one ends on Thursday, July 25th. That's a little less immediate than the last one I talked about.
Still pretty immediate, though.
And it has an estimated delivery of June 2020. You can get just the expansion, which is 3 different modules for $38, but for $114 you can get everything, including the base game, the expansions, and the Kickstarter upgrade packs for both, which gets you the really cool ambulance, 3D ambulance meeple thingies. And also, the new one is a freaking helicopter.
Yeah,
A
yeah, it is.
helicopter that you put your meeples in, because that's awesome. Are there any other games we can wish back into existence? Because I feel like we did pretty good with the 2 here so far.
Yeah, I'm fine with this. This is enough so far. I'm sure that there are other things I could have thought of, but...
Oh, yeah. So, if you listen to last episode and you're excited about Dice Hospital and you want to get it, you can get it on Kickstarter right now. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Moving right along, Rush MD from Artipia Games. It's funding at $38,983 of its $20,000 goal with 764 backers. This one ends on Tuesday, August 6th, with an estimated delivery of December this year. You can back it for $55 if you would like. This is a medical-themed cooperative game that is based off of what the designers learned from Kitchen Rush, which is primarily that sandtypers make really cool, if occasionally unreliable, workers for worker placement. So Kitchen Rush, we talked about, I think at the beginning of this year? No, beginning of last year.
Yeah, it was last year.
Is a cooperative kitchen management game where you're using sand timers for worker placement to accomplish all the different recipes and cooking and all that stuff. And this one is obviously hospital management, where you are taking care of patients, admitting them. You're going to be doing a whole bunch of other stuff like, transferring IV fluids and giving medicines and admitting patients and doing surgery and all this stuff. In addition to having your doctor hourglasses, there's also nurse hourglasses available in there that will let you do some of the functions that you need in the hospital. And it looks like we also decided to add dexterity to this game, because there are literally a pair of tweezers for every player to manipulate organ resources and other stuff like that. And there are 12 little syringes that you are actually going to be putting little blood droplets, kind of little wooden blood pellets, and also IV liquid pellets into to, I guess, save patients. And then you put them on the patients in the cardboard beds. And
Not actual syringes, I hope.
I mean, not like actual with an actual needle
Yeah,
syringes.
that's what I mean.
But board game syringes
Cool.
that you have to take the end stopper off and put stuff into. This is as crazy as it sounds, and I honestly kind of love it. So go check this out. It is really weird. I really liked Kitchen Rush. It's incredibly difficult, and if you are not ready to cooperate, you're going to have a hard time with Kitchen Rush.
I think it's funny. We've got 2 different hospital games in this Kickstarter segment, and it feels like they could not be more different. Because Dice Hospital is a game about making intelligent decisions and really thinking through the repercussions of every move that you're making. You're taking in patients at a certain level, and you are hiring specialists and adding rooms to your hospital to try to make the most efficient and smart decisions. Whereas Rush MD seems like you are just trying to keep people going.
Yeah.
At any second. And that was one of the fun things about Kitchen Rush, where you were just trying to make it through to the end of the round without completely destroying yourself.
And this time without killing any patients.
Indeed.
So yeah, check it out, Rush MD. You can back it for $55. I'm on the fence about this one. I really want to see how it plays.
Okay.
Up next, One Small Step from Academy Games, currently funding at $80,000 of its $20,000 goal with almost 1,200 backers. This one ends on Tuesday, August 6th, so right after Gen Con. It has an estimated delivery of December 2019 of this year. You can back the game for $65, and this is a 1 versus 1 or 2 versus 2 team game about the space race. So obviously one player is going to be the United States, one player will be the Soviet Union space race program, and this is a worker placement and engine building game, and you're going to basically be using the different worker placement spaces with either your engineer or your administrator, depending on, who, if you're playing both, you do both. If you're playing in a team game, one person's the engineer, the other is the administrator. But each of the worker placement spaces on the main board there have different functions for the administrator or the engineer. And if you take one, nobody can take the other side. So you have to both be planning out what you can do to help your teammate and also what you're doing to hinder your opponents from getting the upgrades that they need. As you develop the engine, obviously your space program, you can obviously unlock more advancements, and you're doing manned missions and unmanned missions with the goal of eventually landing upon the moon and getting a whole bunch of points. That's what we got for getting there first. We got points. Victory points. So I had a chance to kind of poke at this one when I was at Origins this year, when I was also talking to the designer who also did Stellaris, which will be coming up later this year, that I'm going to talk about a lot. And it looks like a pretty solid team worker placement engine building game. Academy Games has a good track record from what I understand. We haven't played any of their stuff, I don't think, but 878 Vikings is theirs, and
Freedom is Academy Games.
Yeah.
If you're going to pick a company to do a historically themed game, I have a feeling Academy is the one that most people would pick if they're familiar with modern board game not designers, but publishers and their themes. So I'm excited to see what this is.
Yeah. It looks really neat, and it probably is going to hit a chord with some people. We're just having the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, so perfect time for this game to come out. So
yeah, I think they did that on purpose.
Oh, yeah. No, they definitely did. You check out One Small Step. It is on Kickstarter right now. And finally, the largest money that I can talk about on this particular episode is Dice Throne Adventures. This is coming from Roxley Games. It is funding just a tiny bit short of $1 million of its $80,000 goal with over 6,000 backers. This one ends on Friday, August 9th with an estimated delivery of July 2020. So before I get into the different price levels, Dice Throne Adventures is an expansion for Dice Throne Season 1 or Season 2 that you are going to take your characters and mechanics of Dice Throne, which is just a dice-based kind of, versus
it's a combat game.
And you're going to take all of those things and you're going to plug them into this giant cooperative mega expansion that uses all that stuff and put it into a roguelike dungeon crawler with randomly generated tile maps, random encounters, a whole bunch of boss battles, and more. So you can get, if you're already in Dice Throne, you can get the expansion box for $69. You can add on the pre-painted minis to that for another $60. You can also just get Season 1 revamped. They're calling it re-rolled, which is kind of making it look at the level of quality of Season 2 for $79. Or you can get everything Dice Throne ever so far for the low price of $340. Is that too much?
I mean, probably, but if you really like this game, there are a lot of games that you can spend $340 on if you want to buy all of it ever. I'm looking at you, Terraforming Mars.
And Seventh Continent.
Continent, and any number of CMON games that you could get everything for. But, I mean, if this is something that you really enjoy, then go ahead.
I think
at the same time, if it works with either Season 1 or Season 2, I can't imagine why you'd need both.
I guess just for, replayability and variability. I think the thing that makes this so enticing, and I'm not going to be backing this, don't worry, don't kill me. What makes it so enticing to me is that you're basically getting two games in here now, because you have Dice Throne, which you have your competitive, 1v1 or one versus all or whatever, and then you have this whole different way to play, which is something that we haven't seen a lot of games do yet. There's, obviously in RPGs and stuff, you can kind of adapt it however you want, but seeing a game that is basically the same stuff that you can go then convert into this other scenario is really kind of exciting and interesting. I guess, CMON's done it with like Arcadia Quest and Masmora. There's some crossover there, but it's not the same mechanics, so I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, if you own Dice Throne Season 2 already, I think this makes sense. You're paying $70, which is still a bunch of money, but is not an unreasonable amount of money for the expansion. It could be warranted to say, okay, to get an entire new way to play this game that I already have the stuff for, I will pay $70. If you have Season 1 and you're needing to buy, or not needing, but getting that re-rolled expansion for an extra $79 would be necessary to keep your component quality on par, I have a feeling that at that point you're getting into whatever you paid for Season 1 plus $79 plus, I'm assuming it's plus the $69 for the expansion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. $79 is just the Season 1 rerolled. It's a complete replacement for the entire thing. It's not like an upgrade pack. Okay.
So at that point, I think you're paying quite a bit of money. Even if it were two completely different games, you're paying more than you'd pay to play two completely different games at that point. Again, I think this is something that is only a buy if you are really excited about Dice Throne. If you've not played Dice Throne before, I'm not shelling out this kind of cash.
Yeah.
And we have played Dice Throne before, and I'm still not shelling out this kind of cash.
I think, if I had gotten into Season 2 and had that really nice box, because Season 2 Kickstarter was really, really well-produced and looked great, and if we had gotten into that and, we had the time to play that kind of game regularly, which, frankly, we don't have time to play dueling games a whole lot other than Keyforge, I would probably see myself getting into Dice Throne Adventures, because the system looks really freaking cool.
Okay.
So yeah, Dice Throne Adventures, $340 on Kickstarter if you want to get everything Dice Throne ever. All right, that was 5 things, plus 4 updates. Danielle, I apologize already for the updates that we're going to have to do for the next 2 episodes.
That's fine.
But instead, let's go talk about games we've played.
Yeah, let's actually talk about some games we've actually played.
Let's do that thing after this bump.
Want to wear your draft mechanic pride to your local brewery, board game meetup, or board game meetup at a brewery? Check out redbubble.com/people/draft mechanic for t-shirts.
Here we are in the recent plays, and we've got a pair of them. A pair of games that you play by yourself, which sounds sadder than it is. But there was some really good solo games this year, and it just kind of happened we played both of them this particular roundabout.
Yeah, and I'm glad we have a pair, because otherwise I'd have to move one of my dice down on the Proving Grounds review, right?
I think that's how that works, but you can tell us about that in a second. So first up, Proving Grounds, a 26...
One more again.
I'm living in the past. First up, Proving Grounds, a 2019 release from Renegade Game Studios. It plays one player in 30 to 45 minutes. This is designed by Kane Klenko, with art by Xaba Bernath and Matthew Dobrich. This is a game of solo dice rolling, re-rolling, and re-re-rolling if you're really lucky. Danielle, you want to tell us how this one goes?
Sure. In Proving Grounds, you have what looks like a rondel, but is not. You have a circular playing mat that has your character in the middle, and has positions for all of the 6 sides of a d6. So you've got a section for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You are going to start by placing out enemy cards in each of these positions. And then, on your first turn, you are going to take a big ol' fistful of dice. Most of these dice are white, but there are a couple of colored dice. I believe there are green, yellow, and blue dice that are also in your group. And you are going to have 1 minute to roll them until you get a result that you are happy with. Now, I'll obviously explain what makes a result that you might be happy with. First, I want to talk a little bit about the enemy cards. The enemy cards each have a starting position for the enemy's status. Let's say there's a bar on the right-hand side, and the farther up the status bar the token that you place on the enemy goes, the more beat up they are and the closer you are to defeating them, and the farther down the token goes, the closer they are to hurting you, which is bad because you would like you to be alive at the end of the game.
Hurting's bad.
So each of the steps on that progress track is going to have a threshold that needs to be met to move it up on the track. It may be that it requires 3 of the number of the position that it's in. So if I've got a card in position 1, and it needs 3 to move up, I am going to need to roll 3 ones on my turn in order to be able to move that marker up. If I don't roll 3 ones, but I roll any ones, I need to make sure I roll at least 2. And this is what I was joking about in our description of the recent plays. If you roll a single number of whatever position that card is in, you are going to be moving the token down 1, closer to injuring your character. If you have at least 2, even if that doesn't meet the threshold for moving up, you're safe and that token will not move at all. But if it does meet the threshold for moving up, you can move the token up. And if you've actually met the threshold to move up to the space above it, you can move up again, unless there's a special power that doesn't let you. Like I said, you're going to be rolling all of your dice on each turn, and you're going to have 1 minute to get a result that you are happy with. One of the tricks about re-rolling the dice, though, is that you can only re-roll dice that you have at least a pair of. Single numbers, if you've only got 1 1 in your entire roll, you can't re-roll that. You need to re-roll something that you have multiples of, which means that you are giving up the safety of not moving one of those markers down in order to get something that is more favorable on your other numbers. When either you run out of time in your rolling minute, or you've reached a result that you're happy with, you stop rolling and you assign each of your groups of dice to the position that they are showing the number for, and then you assess whether each of the markers move up, don't move at all, or move down. If they move down onto the wound symbol at the bottom of each card, your character is going to take a wound, which means that you will need to take one of the dice, any of the dice, it's your choice, that you rolled that round and place it in sort of a timeout on the side that you'll get back in 3 rounds. And you are going to reduce your health. If you reduce your health all the way to the bottom of your health track, then you're dead. That's bad, you've lost the game.
Don't be dead.
If, on the other hand, you manage to get the token on the enemy card all the way up to the top, that means you have defeated that enemy, you remove it from the position that it's in, you replace it with a new enemy off the top of the deck. And if you live to the end of the round where you have defeated your 8th enemy, so you defeat 8 enemies or are still alive, then you are the winner of Proving Grounds Huzzah.
Congratulations.
I think you've restored your family's honor or something like that.
Yeah, there is actually a small novella that is included in the box that details the story of Maya Strongheart as she goes into the Proving Grounds to clear her family's honor, which I have read because I was traveling and didn't have a whole lot else to do, so I read it. It's nice. It gives you a little bit of flavor to the game as well, which is really cool. So I appreciate that.
Know what I've never ever said? I wish this board game had a novella to explain the story behind why I'm playing this game. Usually, like, a rule book is good for me. I don't need a novella with my board game.
Yes, well, maybe it's good because it's a solo game and it gives you something to do while you were playing the game.
Maybe. One thing I also do want to say is that this game comes with 6 expansion modules that you can add in any combination should you like. So there is a lot of variability that you can add to this game if you have played it a whole ton of times. We are just talking about the base game, and that is going to be the same with Aerion. That has a bunch of expansions in it as well, but we're just going to talk about the base game there as well.
Yeah, solo games have always been an interesting space to me because as I've been playing more and more solo games over the years, I've been finding it's hard to create a lot of tension in a solo game because obviously, I get to kind of sit there and look at it and just take it at my own pace. Adding this real-time 1-minute dice element into a solo game gave me the tension that I don't get a lot in a solo game because obviously I'm looking at the stuff and I'm like, oh, I got to get this set and I can't have that 1-4 by itself. And it gives me the kind of tension and excitement that I get when I'm playing like a worker placement game with other players and I'm looking at them like, please don't take that action space. I really need that one really bad. So it's cool to have a little bit of tension and excitement in a solo game to me. And this does it in a way that I haven't really had yet.
Yeah, and it definitely means that you have to obviously look at your dice and group your dice really quickly, but you also have to look back and forth between your opponent tracks because some of those opponents need 2 dice to move up, some need 3, some need 4, some need a specific color of die to be included in their combination, and you're not going to have those memorized because you're switching out those opponents as you defeat them, and the track is moving up and down and they're variable across it, maybe like 2 dice on the first 2 levels and then 3 and then 4. But you don't really have time to sit there and look and see what each of those opponents needs and compare it to what you're rolling. You just need to be like, okay, I think I need 2 and 4 to be good this round. Otherwise, I'm going to take a whole bunch of wounds, and that's really bad. I'm going to be dead. So I just need to keep rolling until my 2s and 4s are good, and if anything else is fine, that's good. I definitely had some rounds where I rolled pairs of a bunch of things, and I didn't even look at what I needed. I was like, I'm safe, I guess. Like, nothing's going to move. It might not move up, but it won't move down, so I'm not going to touch it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely have had a few rounds where before I'm about to roll my dice, I look at all my cards and I'm like, all right, I really would love to get a bunch of 1s and a bunch of 6s.
Rolls 4s.
Or even like I roll a whole bunch of 1s, but I have like 3 1s and then I'm trying to get some other stuff and I get like 4 1s and then I have 5 1s. I've had the point where I get to like 6 of one number that I only needed 3 of, and I'm just like, but I really need to roll something to get rid of this single that's over here, otherwise I will die. And it's so infuriating to kind of have to break up that like perfect set that just got too good because it absorbed too many of your dice.
But how cool is it when you can move that token up 2 different levels on the same fistful of dice?
Yeah.
It's really good because it makes you feel like, oh, I took a huge step forward. Maybe I swung and I hit a really good artery or something. And it really makes it feel like you did a good turn. And this is the kind of game where you definitely feel like you have good turns and you have turns where the timer runs out and you're like, oh, this is gonna hurt.
I really honestly kind of enjoy the way the game deals with you getting injured as well, because obviously you have your life track, which sucks, and you're losing life and you'll eventually die that way, but you also lose dice out of your dice pool into this exhaustion track as you start taking wounds. And I like that. It makes sense that as I'm getting beaten up in this fight, I'm going to have a little less to work with. And I also thought it was really cool how thematically, once you're halfway down your life track, you have the ability to trade some of your dice out for some of those colored dice and then get, a colored die instead of a white die later on. So you have more of the colored dice that then can be used more with more of the cards that require like special benefits or something.
And some of those opponents get a bonus if you have a certain colored die on them. They're worth 2 dice, which is also good because it means you have a chance to move up, and those generally require higher numbers of dice. They may require 4 or even 5 of the same number, But it also means that if you only roll one, as long as it is that particular colored die, you don't have to worry about pairing it up because that one counts as a pair in and of itself.
Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting dice manipulation in this, and it's rare that I want to come back a ton to a solo game. You know, like I was traveling the last 2 weeks to everybody out there. I took Proving Grounds with me one week. I took Aerion with me the next week. And I actually kind of wish that I had taken Proving Grounds with me that second week, because I was thinking about it during the week as I was, playing other stuff. I'm like, but I really want to know
gotta share
how some of these modules work. And I really want to get in and try some of those, because I bet I could totally do this a different way if I start looking at my hand of dice this way when I get into it. So it's definitely got my attention and got my brain thinking about it a lot.
Speaking of getting attention, I do want to say the presentation on this game doesn't really do it justice, I don't think. The art is not bad. It's by no means bad art, but the art and theme didn't really grab me. It was interesting, but it's sort of gladiator-style drawings, and it wasn't... It didn't jump off the shelf at me. If I saw it on a board game shelf, I wouldn't pick it up just by what I saw. In contrast to the other game we're talking about, which has a very unique art style, like that was the game when I saw it, I was like, okay, I want to see what this is. I've seen the Shoddy Torby game's art before. I want to know what's going on with that. It jumps off of the shelf to you, whereas Proving Grounds looked kind of generic, which is a shame because this is a fun game.
That's a very good point, and I hadn't really thought about that. It does have that, this is generic, fighting medieval times kind of look to it. I do know that this is part of a series that they are planning to do. It's part of the Solo Hero series that King Klenko is designing with Renegade that looks like it's all going to kind of be based off of this base mechanic. And that's super exciting to me, and I'm excited that if they continue to add more interesting and exciting themes into it, and hopefully never zombies. Please don't do a freaking zombie game of this. Sorry. Moving on. If they continue to do more of this, it'll get people to come back and check out Proving Grounds once they've played another one that they really like. So I'm super excited to see where this one goes in the future, and this system hopefully continues to go further.
Yeah, that being said, this is not a game to play if you are like in a restaurant or somewhere that needs to be quiet.
Yeah,
or
very true.
If you're in an airport, because I have a feeling that you will have these dice jump away from you very quickly. I definitely rolled mine out of the box a couple of times because I was just trying to, scoop them all up at once. You've got this big mid of dice and you're rolling them into the box lid, and I had a couple jump out. But this is definitely something that is going to draw attention if you play it in public, because you are rolling lots of dice very quickly, and you will have set a timer that will be going off when your minute runs out, and your minute will run out sometimes.
I feel personally called out by the comments you've just made, because I definitely played this in Midway Airport, but it was like deep back in the food court. Actually, if you ever go to Midway, there's this kind of like side section in the A terminal that's not like right on the main drag, and there's some really nice big tables in there, and also right there, the sushi place is the only place that has good beer. They actually have some Three Floyds. And
Save
some
it for the beer traveler.
All right, fine. But yeah, I played this in Midway Airport, and I definitely also played it at one of the bars that I was at in Chicago that week.
Okay, well...
But everybody did come up and be like, why are you rolling dice in a public place, man? Don't do that. That's weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to draw attention, and there are a lot of folks who don't necessarily want to draw attention to their public board gaming. So.
Oh, and one last note about Proving Grounds before we move on. If you buy a first edition of this, there is actually a misprint on the entire enemy deck where it's like one step harder than it should be for almost all of the cards.
Oh, no.
So Renegade is providing a free replacement deck. They had it at Origins when I picked it up. So if you do end up picking this up at Gen Con, ask, hey, is this the corrected version? Or do you have that deck? Or if you've already bought it somewhere, you might want to ask about that as well, because otherwise you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah.
But yeah, Proving Grounds, I super love it. I am really excited to play more of this and dig into those modules. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm talking about those in the next few episodes.
Yeah, I'm excited to play it again, that's for sure.
Cool.
Next up, we're going to be talking about Aerion, which is not a surprise, as I just mentioned that we were going to be doing it. And it is a 2019 release from Z-Man Games, which plays one player in 15 to 30 minutes. It is designed by Shoddy Torby, and the art is by Elise Plessis. This is a game of solo dice rolling, but probably just once, unless you find a magical item.
So Aerion is the fifth, or I guess technically sixth game in the Onirim, the Oniverse of Shadi Torbé's solo games. Aerion is not available and doesn't exist, and they kind of deny it at this point. Hopefully it gets redone. But anyway, Aerion is a game about creating airships. You are an engineer that is trying to gather resources and crew members and blueprints for ships in order to create 6 airships. And once you've done that, I guess you feel very good about yourself having populated the skies.
You got airships, man. Why wouldn't you feel good?
Well, there wasn't a novella in this one to tell me why I needed to build all these airships.
But there were like fold-out pieces of cardboard that open and present all the cards to you.
It's such a pretty box. But basically, in the game of Aerion, you're going to have a deck of cards, or rather, one deck of cards you're going to split into 6 decks based on how they're labeled. You're going to lay those 6 decks out in front of you, and each of them is going to have their own display piled directly under and their discard pile directly above it. On your turn, you're going to roll your fistful of dice. There's 6 dice. And you're going to hope that you have one of the combinations that equals up to one of those sets of cards. There's a set of cards that's like 2 pair. There's a set that's 3 of a kind. There's a full house. There's one that's either 2 sets of 3 or 3 pairs of 2. And then there's one that's 4 of a kind and then a 5 number straight. But basically, if you get one of those, you have the opportunity to take the card that is currently being displayed from that deck underneath it. The cards in each of those 6 decks are going to have one of the kinds of resources, or one of the kinds of crew, or blueprints for one of the 6 ships. And your goal is to collect a blueprint, a crew, and a resource for each of the 6 ships at the top of the board. You know, these little cardboard airships you're going to flip over and feel really good about. The challenge here is that you only have 2 workshops at a time, so you can only have 2 things in process at any given time. You do have the opportunity to put cards into a reserve and kind of steal them that way, that you have to gain the pulpit cards to kind of manipulate cards. Pulpits are another kind of card that look like a little book, and they will allow you to manipulate your cards and or reroll your dice or do some other fun effects in certain ways.
You can get stuff back into your draw piles.
Mm-hmm. So if for some reason you don't have something that matches up to one of the sets of dice, or you want to change it, you can choose to discard one of the cards from the display in order to re-roll some of your dice, which is good because then you have a chance of getting that, but it's bad because you also have one less card to work with. Mm-hmm. The game will end when you run out of cards in all of your decks, and you're going to feel very bad because there's a very limited number of cards in each of the decks. I think it's only 6 cards in each of the decks. So as the game goes on, you're going to have fewer and fewer options, and it's entirely possible you might make a move that discards that final resource of that type without realizing it. There are obviously ways for you to get cards from your discard pile back into your decks or manipulate stuff into the display again, but if you're not really paying attention to what you're discarding and what you're manipulating in what way, you can find yourself pretty much put out.
I needed bears, Jake. What happened to the bears?
Where'd all my bears go?
I discarded them.
Don't discard the bears. They're coming back for you. So if you are lucky enough to assemble all 6 of your airships and survive that end of the round, then you will feel very good about yourself because you've made a very nice fleet. Congratulations. You are the most Aerion of all.
Cool.
Yeah. This one, like we said, also comes with a pile of little expansion modules. This is pretty much a staple of all of the Shadi Torbé Oniverse games. They all have a bunch of different stuff you can add in. And we've talked about, Onirim and Sylvian in the past. Yeah. I don't think we ever talked about Castellian or Nautilian, even though I played Nautilian a lot. That was fun. I should play that one again.
This one has a Hellkite expansion.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Don't know what it does, but it is a little Hellkite meeple that you get.
Mm-hmm. So, I always feel, quote-unquote, other about the Shadi Torbé Oniverse games. They feel so different than regular solo games to me, and I think it's just the way that the designs have an interesting way of manipulating cards or doing something different, and it might just honestly be the otherworldly kind of art and presentation. They all have this really abstract kind of Picasso-esque watercolor look to them, which makes it look almost like a kid did it, but also made it look like some super serious artists did it as well. It's just got that really wild kind of other look to it.
It feels kind of beautifully grotesque.
Yeah, I think that's very appropriate. And I always feel when I'm playing them that it feels like a game unlike anything I've ever played before. And they all just have felt very strange and very different, and I just really, really enjoy them. And this one is no different. I had a lot of fun with my plays of this, and I felt like it wasn't the most challenging of the Oniverse games, but it definitely felt like I had enough to do. I was still making decisions that made sense and were challenging decisions.
I am not always as fond of the Oniverse games as you are. I was sort of on the fence about Sylvian I don't think I was crazy about Onirim either, if I remember correctly. I was not crazy enough about it that I haven't played it in a very long time to remember. But this one was actually probably my favorite of the ones that I've played. It didn't feel completely impossible, but at the same time, I felt engaged about what I was doing. I felt like I had really interesting decisions. I had to make sure that I balanced what I was getting with what I was discarding, how I was spending those pulpit cards. I really enjoyed it a lot, and like you said, it is so striking. One thing I will say is it took up a surprising amount of space on the table.
Yeah, it is a table hog. There's a lot of cards going on.
I laid it out, and I had originally set it up on our coffee table, because I was like, oh, that's fine. I don't need the whole dining table to just play this game, just me. I'll set it up on the coffee table, no problem. And at first, I was just on this one little corner of the table. And I was like, oh, that's not going to work. Let me move it. Clear off another portion of the table. I ended up using, like, the whole coffee table to set this thing up, just to have all the space. So you will need a whole bunch of piles of cards and discard piles and displays and workshops and the pulpit area and the reserve area and where you have all of your magic fairy tokens that essentially allow you to, I think they allow you a free reroll.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, no, it's to change something to whatever number you want. That's what it is. Yeah. Which is the only time in the game you get to do that. You get to make something what you need it to be in that moment. You get 3 of them for the whole game, and when they're gone, they're gone. I really liked this one. It is probably the one I like less of these 2 games that we've talked about, of Proving Grounds and Aerion, but I really did like it. I liked it better than the other Oniverse games. How about you?
I still think I like Natillion best. I don't know if you'd played that one yet. That was the 4th one. Sylvian is brutal.
It is.
It is super challenging. And Onirim, I enjoy, especially for being the foundation of the series and the universe. But Onirim has kind of lost some of its luster to me at this point. And honestly, the app version has replaced the need for me to ever carry it around. This one had... It was fresh. It was fresh. It had interesting mechanics. I like the way the dice worked in this kind of almost poker hand kind of sense, which is something you don't see that combination enough. Like, I think Dice Town is the only other thing that really does any poker-ish stuff with dice that I can think off the top of my head. But I really enjoyed this. And again, like, I'm looking forward to...
Yahtzee.
Yeah, I guess Yahtzee does. Yahtzee, the dice game we always forget about. The first roll and right. But yeah, I'm excited to see what the other modules add into this. I want to see how all that plays. And honestly, playing this makes me want to go back and play the other Oniverse games again.
No.
Or at least some of them. I'll look at Sylvia and I'll be like, yeah, nah.
We diverge at that point.
Yes. But you might want to check out Natillion if you like this one, because I feel like Natillion did a lot of fun dice stuff as well. So that might be the next step for you if I ever have to, go on a month-long sandwich journey again.
Can I have bears pilot airships in that one?
I mean, it's underwater, so boat ships. Or I guess that's just regular ships, isn't it? Submarines.
Bears shouldn't go underwater.
Some kind of bear joke here. I'm not set up for puns right now. I'm not thinking in a pun zone.
Okay.
I'm so sorry that I've let you down with puns today. But anyway, that is Aerion. Before we move on, I gotta say, 2019 has been a really good year for solo gaming already, and I feel like so many games right now are really pushing solo modes and having that stuff added in terms of, being a big feature of the game. And, things like Terraforming Mars has a solo, all of the Stonemaier games have always had these automas, but seeing these dedicated solo games coming out, Aerion, Proving Grounds. I talked about Deep Space D6 earlier this year, and I know there's more solo stuff on the way. It's exciting and to see people breaching into that space and kind of finding new things to do with that. So I'm really excited about that. I don't know why. I just kind of wanted to mention how much excitement I have for solo games right now.
Cool.
Hey, everybody, go listen to Low Player Count if you don't already. It's kind of sporadic right now as they are getting back into the teaching season. They're both teachers over there. But there's a wealth of content on Low Player Count, part of the Punchboard Media Content Network, if I do say so.
They mostly talk about solo and 2-player games, for the record. That's why he's saying that you should do that.
Also very true. So yeah, go check out Low Player Count. They're also awesome. Time for us to move on. Maybe we'll move on to a lagoon.
Let's go to a bump first.
In Reavers of Midgard, the second standalone installment in the Champions of Midgard universe, you will be taking your clan beyond your own borders on your never-ending quest for glory.
Each player has a single worker they will place each round, determining one of the actions all players will take. and of course, gaining the strongest version of it for themselves. But be aware of your fellow Vikings, since you get to take a version of the action they select.
Use the powerful Reaver cards to recruit crew members and then to rally additional crew to lead your troops or to specialize in one of your actions, increasing its benefits when either you or another player chooses it.
Bring territories into your empire, raid keeps and villages, pillage farms, walls, or towers, or even fight sea battles against ships and serpents alike. You can use guaranteed resources you know you have, or take a chance with the dice and hope the favor of the gods is on your side.
In the end, only the clan with the most glory will triumph in Reavers of Midgard from Grey Fox Games.
Grey Fox Games, quality games, cleverly crafted.
Alright, I warned y'all on the last episode that a review of Blue Lagoon was coming eventually, so here it is. Blue Lagoon 2018 release from Blue Orange Games, 2 to 4 players, 30 to 45 minutes, designed by the good Dr. Rainer Knizia, with art by Tomasz Larek. This is a game of area control, set collection, and I'm sorry, that meeple is what?
Yeah.
That is it's a meeple, alright. Moving on, Danielle, tell us about how Blue Lagoon is played.
In Blue Lagoon, you have a board which has 8 different islands on it, and there is water between all the islands.
The water is blue. This is the lagoon we're referring to.
Yes. Each player is going to have 2 different types of player pieces. You will have these little pog-looking things, which have a person in a boat on one side and a person walking in a field on the other side. And you also have small wooden houses. Those are your villages. On your turn, you are going to place out either a pog on the boat side or the land side, depending on where you're putting it, on land or in the water, or you can place out one of your villages. That's all you're going to ever do on your turn. When you place your piece onto the board, if it is going to land on a hexagon that has a resource on it, then you're going to take that resource. At the beginning of the game, there are certain spaces that the resources are going to be seeded onto, and you're going to put them all out every turn. There are 5 different kinds of resources. 4 of them are for a set collection type of deal. You've got coconuts, which are white, bamboo, which is yellow, precious stones, which are green and look suspiciously like leaves, and you've got water, which is in a bowl. So the shape of water, which is not a fish man, it is a sort of oblong circle thing.
Just imagine if there were like little DVDs or DVD cases that just had like Shape of Water on them.
They would be as intuitive as all of the other resources. Why are the coconuts not the brown thing? You don't get the inside of a coconut when you pick it up. Anyway, there are also these little brown statues, which are statuettes that you are going to collect. They are not part of the set collection. They are just worth a bunch of points during each of the scoring sections. Anyway, when you place your piece onto the board, if it goes on a hex that has any of those little wooden bits, you take the wooden bit, you set it aside for the scoring thing. Good job. Your object in this is to get different types of control of the board. There are points that you're going to get for having connected islands. So, like I said, there are 8 islands on the board, and you will get points during each of the scoring phases for the number of connected islands. You'll get 5 points per island. There is also an area control for each of the islands that you're going to get. You will get points for having sets of the same type of set collection resource. So the coconut, water, precious stones, and other thing.
Bamboo?
Bamboo, you're correct. So you'll get points for having collections of those. You'll get a point for having 10 points for having one of each of those. So it's good to have a nice diversity. And like I said, you will get 5 points for each one of those little statuette brown head things. After you go through this once, everybody's placed out all of their tokens and all of their villages. You do a scoring, as I just said. You'll do all of those features of scoring, and you will remove all of the pogs from the board. They will go back to their owners. The little village huts will stay on the board. Unless you put them on one of the resource spaces, they say that they're removed. They might as well just say, don't put them on the resource spaces. That's a stupid thing to do. You're not going to have them in the second half of the game.
I guess it's possible that at the end of the game, you're like, I got to get this one resource, but I used all my pogs. Why did I make these bad decisions?
Because you did.
Yes, and then you deserve to lose your hut.
Indeed. So you're going to take all the pogs, give them back to the original player. On the second round, you can start either anywhere on the board, because one thing I didn't mention is when you're placing these out, you can place the boat side of the pog anywhere. But if you're placing a land side, you need to be adjacent to one of your existing pogs on the board. Well, when you do it the second time, your villages count as starting spaces. So it gives you a little bit of a head start so that you can get onto the resource spaces quicker and you can connect the islands better. You'll do the whole thing again, place out all of your pogs again, do the exact same scoring again, and add up your 2 scores from the first scoring and the second scoring. Whoever has the highest score, the most points, is the winner of Blue Lagoon.
And the most lagoony. The best lagooner. Lagoonery? Lagunistics.
You're
Lagunitas?
definitely Lagunitas, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Blue Lagoon. Played it at Geekway. Ordered it while playing it from Miniature Market.
Yeah, that was a you decision. I wasn't as immediately sold as you were.
Mm-hmm. But after a bunch of plays, how do you feel now?
I am more sold on it now than I was after our first play.
Mm-hmm. I just freaking love the strategy of this game. It blows my mind. And I think so much of it comes from having, I think I've talked about this like 4 times already, having played this super old game Twixt, which is just a similar kind of thing. It's you're trying to plan out routes from one side of the board to the other and get 1 or 2 spots ahead of the other players so that you can finish your routes. And this is the same thing, except they take it up to being able to play with 4 players. And then they add in the resource collection, and that's just a whole nother wrinkle of, do I spend my time connecting all of my different islands, making a long chain, or do I branch out here to go get those resources because I really need a white coconut piece to get my set together? There's so many great decisions you're making every single turn of this game that I cannot stop playing it. I am so enamored by Blue Lagoon right now.
Yeah, it is very much about deciding what is the most important thing for you to do in your strategy right now. Because there is a huge amount of points to be had by connecting a lot of islands. Like, that is the strategy that I think you've generally gone for in our plays of it, at least.
Oh, yeah.
Where you want to get a long chain of islands, you're going to get 5 points per island when it comes to scoring. And there is also a lot of points that you're going to get for being on every island. So if you can manage to connect all of your islands, not only are you going to get a huge lump of points for connecting them, but you will get the larger sum of points, which is, there's a 10-point difference between being on all 8 islands and being on 7 of the 8 islands.
That's a big swing.
You want to make sure that you get on all 8 islands, but you also really would like to connect them. At the same time, if you're doing that, you're not focusing on your resource collection, because obviously nobody's going to let you get resources and connect all your stuff. If you're playing with people who let you do that, then you're going to win, but also maybe play with someone else. You have to make sure, do I want to connect all these islands, or do I want to make sure I get 4 of the bamboo resource and 3 of the precious stone resource and, maybe 3 of the coconut resource. And that's going to give you 40 points for those 3 things at the end of the game as well. So you just really need to see where the opportunity is on your turn and hope that nobody else notices what your strategy is while you're doing it.
Another question I have, and this is something that I've thought a lot about, how do you feel the first and the second half of the game feel different? Do they feel different at all to you?
I don't think they do if you played the first half of the game right.
Okay.
If you played the first half of the game, in order to give yourself good jumping off points, you place your huts on different islands around various points of the board, so they're not all in one corner of the island, or the island's grouping, the archipelago, I guess it's called. Then I don't feel like you are super restricted, because you can still place boats anywhere on the board. You have multiple jumping off points from your hut. It's just really about refining what you did the first time. And when you start the game, you can look at what resources are next to your huts, because hopefully you placed your huts next to some resource spaces, not on them, but next to them, which is just a wise thing to do.
It's good planning. Put that one in the rule book.
Yeah, but if you can see what is immediately next to you, you're probably going to be able to get those instead of another person, unless they've also got a hut immediately next to it. So, okay, I've got 2 coconuts next to this one hut. Okay, maybe I want to collect coconuts this round because I've got a lot of them there. Or I've got 2 of these statuettes of the tiki heads next to me. Mm-hmm. Okay, those are going to be a guaranteed 8 points when I do the scoring. What else do I want to do? I don't have to worry about necessarily making an effort to get those tiki heads because they're right next to me. I'm going to be able to get them. I feel like the second half of the game feels like doing the first half of the game, but leveled up, where you know a little bit more of what you've got and you've had a chance to see how the other players are playing. It's like a do-over where you understand the way the other person's brain works. And that particularly came to me after our very first game, where I was playing with you and Jeff from the Mile High Game Guys, and you guys got into an area control war in the first half of the game.
Oh, boy.
and you were just like tooth and nail fighting it out to get control of the 10-point islands, I stayed completely out of your way. I'm like, you know what? There are other ways to get points in this game. And I knew that you guys were going to be having that area control fight. So in the second half of the game, I didn't even try for it. I didn't even place out any of my pogs hoping that I was going to get that area control. I was like, I'm going to work on connecting my islands. I'm going to work on resource collection. Area control is a lot of points. Those islands are worth 6 to 10 points apiece. So if you can get 3 or 4 of them, you're talking about somewhere between, 18 and 30 points. That's a bunch of points. But it's not worth it if you're not going to be getting resources and you're not going to be getting on all the islands and you're not going to be collecting stuff. You can't give up all of the other scoring categories to make sure that happens. So this is when we were talking at the top of the episode about how sometimes it's better to just stay off on your own. If you see 2 of the other players getting in an area control war, stay away from that business. Just get out of it and work on other scoring. And this game gives you enough ways to get points that I never really felt like I was boxed in, like everybody had taken all the good ways to get scoring, and I was just stuck doing nothing. I felt like there was always something I could do.
Yeah, and I kind of want to jump off of that. I, in whatever player count we played, have been impressed with how well the board is sized. The board doesn't change size for the number of players, you just change the number of pieces you have. And every single time it's felt both crowded and with enough option for me to get around and move around if I needed to, or at least jump somewhere and start again. I think a lot of that is owed to the fact that you can always come in from a water space. So if you really want to, you can always come in somewhere else on the board and start to make roads somewhere else. And that makes it so that you can never get completely cut off, which in a game like this that is focused around path building can be really, really helpful. It kind of takes the sting out of having somebody cut you off. And I really appreciate that.
I think also the fact that they are hexes gives you a little bit of a chance if somebody's trying to cut you off. Mm-hmm. There's usually, if you can spot it early enough, a longer way around that you can take advantage of, as long as you see it early enough in there coming towards you with their pogs and villages and such. So it's usually a 2-turn option to cut somebody off, where hopefully they can, if the board is still open enough, they can work around it. But at the same time, there are times where you can just cut somebody off, and it feels really good when you do. Because it doesn't really feel mean at that point. You know you're not destroying their whole game.
Yeah. And it all comes back to being able to jump in wherever you need to from those water spaces.
Yep.
I will say, I definitely want to play this at 3, I think, the most, and especially 3 players that want to all get in kind of in each other's way as much as possible. Obviously, it's going to be bad if only 2 players want to get in each other's way. And then
it was fine for me.
I guess so. 33% of people agree. Danielle whooped our butt. And no, I'm pretty sure 100% of people agree with that. But 3 players feels like the right count to me at that, because then you can't split stuff evenly as well, and you're obviously going to have to watch both sides. 4 players, it's a little more crowded. It's a little more kind of quote-unquote chaotic, because you have more pieces going in between your turns. 3 is a great spot. I do got to say, I was really surprised at how well it worked at 2 still. It's still, we had enough pieces that we could get where we needed to, and it didn't go on forever.
I kind of expected it to be garbage at 2, but it definitely wasn't.
Mm-mm. No, it's a really strong design there. I guess we should also talk about art components and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
The art is cool. I think the island itself is nice. It's clear to see what's a land and what's a water space.
It's very bright.
Yeah, it's very bright, very colorful game, and everything is labeled pretty well. It's not hard to find what spaces are what or which island is which. There's one island in the middle that the 10 points kind of are out on the side of the board, but they put a little arrow down into it, so that's nice. The resources we made plenty of jokes about before, and will continue, because the resources are kind of ridiculous little meeples.
At the same time, you don't actually need to know what they are in the game, as long as you know that the ones that are not brown are the set collection, and the ones that are brown are the ones that are worth points. Like, it would be good if the coconuts were coconut colored.
Brown round things?
And, and the bamboo was the green thing, and the gems were some other color. And the water bowls looked anything like water. Yeah. But at the same, they're distinct enough that you can tell what they are.
Yeah.
Even if you don't necessarily see the color of them, they're distinct shapes. And as long as you know, and the little scoring pad shows you the shape of what you're looking for, they are really functional pieces, even if they are a little wonky in the coloring.
Mm-hmm. Color choice of the player pieces also I kind of enjoyed. There's a yellow, an orange, a purple, and a blue. No generic red, no generic green, which kind of just works super well with the color palette and also works well with the double-sided tokens. I guess having a green token would look kind of weird with the green side of the pogs. Because so anyway, the pogs, like you said, are water on one side and forest or land on the other. And the background color is really the way you're going to see it. Either it's blue water background color or the green kind of fieldy color. And I guess having that green would kind of clash. But I found it super easy at all times to look at the board and figure out where everybody was, because the color ring of the player pieces is super pronounced. And I think this set of color choices, again, at least for me, I don't have any color blindness issues, works really, really well for me.
Yeah, and the villages, the entire roof of the little hut is the color, so it's very easy to tell which ones those are.
Super colorful, and thank you so much for including a good size score pad, Blue Orange. You did a very good job having a score pad there.
Yeah, it would be impossible to play this game and keep track of your score between the 2 rounds if you didn't have a score pad in this.
So with the exception of the weird shapes of the resource components, everything's pretty solid in terms of components. And I gotta say, value for it, this is something you can find under $25 on your local online retailer.
Really?
Or you're not local, but your online retailer. Yeah, I think it's, I got it for under 25 at Miniature Market during Geekway, and that was just fantastic. But I can't see a reason to not have this in a collection. I feel like it plays differently than so many other games. And if you have that, 2 to 4 player group that wants that kind of less than 1 hour, still strategic depth to it, this is a great thing to have.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's super unique. Like, I played, honestly, in the time that we've been working on this review, because it's sort of got backburnered for a minute.
Yeah.
I played a game called Through the Desert, which is another area control game.
Okay.
With Bert at our local game night, and it was also enjoyable, but I definitely, playing that game, I was like, I could be playing Blue Lagoon. That would be fun if I could do that.
Well, you know what? You can play it whenever you want.
I know, but it's not normally a thought that I have about abstract games or area control games, stuff like that. These are not usually the types of games that I gravitate towards.
Yeah.
So the fact that I do enjoy this game came as a surprise to me, and I've just really enjoyed going back and trying different strategies, trying to see which kind of categories I can make work together based on the initial setup. It's been a fun time, and if it's only $25, yeah, I would definitely say pick this one up.
I guess for my final thoughts, I've said them a whole bunch of times already. I'm enamored by Blue Lagoon. It has taken a game that I was really intrigued by that I got to play earlier this year in Twixt and added on a few extra pieces to make it super intriguing and full of cool strategy to me. I love the planning ahead that I have to do with every piece placement where I'm maneuvering 5 steps ahead of the other players. And I love the fact that it more often than not blows up in my face because I'm not that good at doing these kinds of games, especially when I'm playing with Danielle.
And how many steps ahead are you?
I'm 5 steps ahead on the wrong board. But I like adding the resource collection in there because that's an interesting decision point that I have to make every single turn. And then it's complemented by a great value and a really decent set of components that have bright, colorful, attractive kind of qualities to them. Blue Lagoon, something that was in my top 10 of the year for last year, and I have a feeling this game is going to continue to grow as I continue to play it. And it kind of makes sense that it's one of these games that it's taken us a while to review because usually these are the games that fall to the wayside and end up becoming a recent play, but this is one that has continually come back out, and I would not be surprised if it comes back out quite a bit more.
Thumbs up, Blue Lagoon.
Speaking of things that come out around Blue Lagoon, we have a selection of beers we would like to talk about that you could take out around your next game of Blue Lagoon, so we will be right back after this bump music with the On Tap. For more information on the beers we chose to pair with today's game on tap, check out the show notes section at our website, draftmechanic.net. Beers, what are they? Who ever really knows? Have you ever seen a beer?
Yes.
I'm going to drink one right now. Glug, 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 glug.
Okay, so we are talking about Blue Lagoon, in case you have forgotten. That is a 2018 release from Blue Orange Games, placed 2 to 4 players in 30 to 45 minutes. It is designed by Rainer Knizia, and the art is by Tomasz Lark. It is a game of area control, set collection, and weird-shaped meeples.
First up, from Modern Times Beer in San Diego, California, we have Fortunate Islands American Pale Ale. This is 5% ABV and 46 IBU. It is a pale ale with a mild, nutty malt backbone. It is then dry hopped with Citra and Amarillo hops to create the aroma and flavor of a tropical IPA with pale ale drinkability. It's available in 16-ounce cans year-round, and believe it or not, here in North Carolina as well. We just got Modern Times. I don't know how it made it here, but I'm not going to complain.
No, take it. It's good beer, and this is part of their core lineup, so if you get Modern Times, you should probably get Fortune Island.
Get at it.
Next up from Villages Brewery in Deptford, London, England, we have Lagoon, which is their red ale. It is 4.3% ABV, and is a red ale that actually used to be called Pontoon, but about 2 years ago they got a cease and desist letter on the name Pontoon, so they just brought it back in April. They liked this beer enough that they wanted to find a way to rebrew it, so they brought it back as Lagoon. It is available in 12-ounce cans and on draft in England.
Cool. From Solorio Brewing Company in Rancho Cucamonga, California, we have Blue Lagoon Blonde Ale. It's 5.3% ABV, and this is a blueberry blonde. It is on tap.
Yeah, Solorio is a fairly small brewery from what I can tell, just looking them up and looking at the number of people who are drinking their beers. But this was rated really well, and obviously it's called Blue Lagoon, so I had to look into it and see if it was something that you should be trying out.
Perfect.
And if you happen to be in Rancho Cucamonga, then you should give it a shot.
All right.
From Maui Brewing Company in Kahai, Hawaii, I have Coconut Hiwa Porter. This is an American porter, which is 6% ABV and 30 IBU. It is a robust dark ale with hand-toasted coconut and hints of mocha. It comes in 12-ounce cans and is available year-round. And I would like to give them a special kudos for actually not only having a functional, legitimate website, which, as you've heard me complain about many, many times, is a rarity sometimes, and they actually have really good nutrition facts for their core beers, at least, on their website. So I can tell you that this is 16 grams of carbs in a 12-ounce can of this porter, which is actually fairly low for a porter. I was surprised to see it that low. But they have all of the information that you could possibly want. It's like a full nutrition facts thing. So good job, Maui Brewing Company.
High five, Maui. Finally, we have Coronado Brewing Company in San Diego, California. Their beer, Leisure Lagoon, is a hazy pale ale that goes at 5.5% ABV and 55 IBUs. That's a lot of fives. This one's a little bit East Coast, a little bit West Coast, and 100% juicy. It's a hoppy pale ale that is fermented with London 3 yeast for a cloudy, hazy finish. It's part of their core series, and it's available in 16-ounce cans.
So honestly, this is a fairly diverse grouping of beers for us. I mean, a lot of times we'll get them, there'll be like 4 IPAs and 1 porter that I put in there, but you've got a lot of choices. You've got a blonde, you've got a porter, you've got a pale, you've got a red, you've got the IPA is the other one? No, it's 2 pales. So you have a lot of choices and a lot of canned beers, which I was happy to see that we could get a whole bunch of different stuff that is packaged that you can get hopefully distributed to you. I know Coronado and Modern Times distribute fairly widely. It looks like Maui distributes pretty widely. They had a couple of locations and they were distributing pretty well. So you have a chance of getting some of these to play with your copy of Blue Lagoon.
And somebody over there in England can check out Villages and let us know how they rate. Yeah. Well, if you'd like more information on any and all of those beers, especially links to their websites, Danielle will have them in the show notes at draftmechanic.net.
That's what I do.
That is the website. And what I do, apparently, is seem to travel way too much for the past 5 weeks, which has been an interesting experience. It's almost been an odyssey in sorts. I've been traveling for work all over the country, but it has afforded me the opportunity to go to a lot of exciting new beer places.
Yeah, Nashville's not even on this Beer Traveler, and you went there a couple of times.
I did go to Nashville a lot. I completely forgot that I even did that. So maybe I'll do a Nashville one at some point in the future. But for this particular one, I've got 3 places that had some really interesting new stuff. Some places had been before and some that I had not. But I'm going to start off with a trip through Michigan. I visited a few places in Ann Arbor first off, and I want to talk about first the Jolly Pumpkin Tap Room, and then a beer bar down the street from them called the Grotto. Jolly Pumpkin, their tap room there is one of, I think, 5 or so different tap rooms that Jolly Pumpkin has around Michigan. They're from Dexter, Michigan, I believe. But their Ann Arbor brew pub that is right downtown Ann Arbor has a big selection of their stuff and also a whole bunch of food. I had a really nice kind of banh mi style sandwich and a collection of the stuff that they had on tap. I had, some of their saisons. I think I had one sour. Jolly Pumpkin really specializes in sours and that kind of stuff. The one thing that was really kind of surprising to me, I was in there on a Wednesday, and I guess they got their beer shipment on Thursday, so half the menu was just out. They were just out of stock on a lot of stuff. So that was kind of a bummer.
So don't go on Wednesday.
Don't go on late on a Wednesday night, especially after whatever big crazy weekend there was there. But when I had been in Ann Arbor a few years ago for another work thing, I went to the Jolly Pumpkin, I think 3 out of the 5 nights I was there, just because I wanted to have something I could rely on as a good meal that was, good quality food and also good quality beer. So I super recommend swinging through there if you are ever through Ann Arbor.
But not on Wednesday.
Not on Wednesdays. There's a few other in the area. I've been to Arbor Brewing Company. Really enjoyed that. They had some good darker and some heavier stuff, a barley wine and imperial stout. This is from my old trip a while ago. The other really notable spot in in Ann Arbor that I found this trip was a place called The Grotto. It's a beer bar that's right down the street from Jolly Pumpkin's Brew Pub, and it has a really cool and unique kind of vibe to it. It's got the one kind of central area inside that's got some open windows, and it's, you know, all wooden tables. It's kind of tight area, but they had a really great selection of stuff from all over. I had my very first speciation of that particular trip in Michigan there, and that was fantastic. But they had a bunch of other stuff on, both local and far away. They had live music going on earlier that night that I had just missed, and they had a really sizable patio area. So if you're up there during spring, summer, fall kind of times, I super encourage you to check out the Grotto, because that was an awesome place to hang out.
Probably okay to go to on a Wednesday.
Yeah, that's probably a good spot to go on Wednesday, because at least they had speciation. That was great. Later on that week, I swung over to Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I actually met up with a friend of the show, Matt, who happens to work at Founders. I had never been to Founders before, because Grand Rapids is not really on the way to anything except where I was specifically going that week. But the Founders Brewery in Grand Rapids is just enormous. And I guess it makes sense, because they're one of the biggest breweries, you know, in the United States. They do, you know, a ton of awesome stuff, and obviously they're widely distributed. But it's the kind of thing that, like, I wasn't really prepared for how large Founders really is. You know, my experience with large breweries was Sierra Nevada over here in Mills River, or going to Dogfish Head up in Delaware, which are big places, but I kind of expected it. The Founders Brewery is like a city block in Grand Rapids, and their tap room is really big. And then Matt and I walked through some of the facility there, and just seeing the sheer size of the tanks that they are doing at Founders right now, you know, like I'm talking like 4 or 5 story tall tanks, that when you see those at Dogfish Head and they're outside, you don't really have a really sense of scale. But when you're standing right next to them and you're already on the 3rd story, you can't quite see the top. Wow. What I will say about Founders is that the beer selection and the food selection there was top notch. I walked in, I look up at the board, and CBS 2018 is on tap. And I immediately know what the rest of my day is going to be like. CBS Canadian
Hazy?
Breakfast Stout. Yeah, very true. Canadian Breakfast Stout is their breakfast stout, obviously aged in maple, barrel, and a whole bunch of other barrel fun stuff. And it's super, super heavy and thick, but it's so sweet and delicious. And to just be able to get that on draft is such a novelty, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, they've been increasing how much CBS they produce, but it's still not like, it's not your everyday average gonna just have it beer.
Yeah, we have 1 bottle downstairs, and we're going to sit on that for a while until it's like the right time. They had a few other great stuff, and I got to try some of their taproom only beer. Everything that I had at Founders was awesome, including the sandwich that we had. We had some like hot chicken sandwich that was really awesome. So I encourage you to check them out. I'm sitting there with Matt, and we're just talking about different breweries in the area. And then he just happens to mention one of the places he goes a lot is Speciation. And I turn to him and I say, hold up, what? They're here? I've had a chance to have speciation stuff. Somebody brought some bottles of that to the Geekway bottle share, and then obviously I had some a few days before at Jelly Pumpkin. But this is my pro tip to you. If you are in Grand Rapids and you did not go to speciation, you did it bad. You did a bad job. Because speciation had some of the most bonkers good sours, wilds, and other fermentation kind of stuff that I've ever had. It just like blew my mind, the barrel aging and the kind of fun that they were having with their beer there. One in particular that I want to talk about, Felidae number 2, Felidae number 2, was a whiskey barrel aged golden sour with pear juice, cinnamon, orange zest, star anise, and clove.
Damn.
That is such an awesome collection of things, and they just like the balance on this beer blew my mind, and it's one of the best, you know, kind of weird wild ales I've ever had. Speciation just rocks so much. While we were sitting there at Speciation, I actually found out that a friend of mine and a longtime friend of Danielle's that was living in Grand Rapids, but I thought had already left and moved out, was having his last night in Grand Rapids. So he came over to Speciation. We talked for a while, and all of us made our way over to Brewery Vivant, which is another one of those breweries that you've always heard the name of, and you always kind of forget that they're out there in a way. But they do some really wacky stuff as well, including one that we had that was called Console Candy of Choice. This is a Pilsner. Very strange, right? Yeah, no, It's a Pilsner with atomic fireballs in it.
What?
I guess they put fireballs in the cask or the keg or whatever, and it was a Pilsner that tasted like cinnamon spicy candy.
Nice.
Really, really weird. And I gotta say, like, they had a lot of just wacky stuff on their list, which was kind of cool and exciting. The space itself was kind of whatever. It was kind of... I think they wanted to make it look like an old church, or maybe it was an old church building, but not in the kind of awe-inspiring way we always talk about Taft's. we were there well after food service, and obviously after eating at Founders, I wasn't about to have another giant sandwich.
No.
But it was a cool spot to visit, and I think it's worth going to Vivant specifically on the strength of what they have. But if you have to only go to one place in Grand Rapids, Speciation is going to take my vote every time. That was phenomenal. I also had a week in Chicago, and we've talked about Chicago in the past. We've talked about Revolution. We've talked about, I think...
18th Street, probably.
At 18th Street, Three Floyds, Half Acre, those kind of things. But I went to some new stuff this time around, and one of them that I finally had the chance to go to after all these years is Mars Community Brewery. Mars does a beer called Jungle Boogie, which is a pale wheat beer with rooibos tea added. And it is like exactly what that sounds like. It's super tea forward. So I've always wanted to go to Mars, and for some reason I always kind of just forgot to go anytime I fly into Chicago. They're actually pretty close to Midway Airport on a lower traffic kind of time. It's 15-20 minutes to get to Mars, and you stay south of the city, so it's really easy to get in and out of there.
Now, it usually takes a lot longer than 15 minutes to get to Mars, right?
Well, I mean, the planet, yes. But Mars Community Brewery, I super encourage people to go by there and check it out, because in addition to having Jungle Boogie and like 5 variants of Jungle Boogie and other versions of it that I had never heard of, they also had a lot of other great beer, which is kind of their whole MO. They do good beer. And the time that I was there was kind of an odd time. I stopped in on a Sunday, and they were having a Pride block party, so I didn't get like the regular Mars experience, but I feel like I got like the right Mars experience. I got the kind of wackiness that space is going to have. Just super busy, lots of love, lots of fun going on, tons and tons of people. They had a block party out back, and just everybody's dancing and partying, and it just felt like the right time to be in that space. So I was like super excited that was the first time I'd ever made it to Mars Community Brewery.
Now, that sounds really cool, but would you recommend it just like if you're not going on the Pride Block Party? Is it still a space that you'd like?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't get a chance to go back later that week, but just, seeing it and seeing the space and the fact that they do have such a ridiculously good selection of beer in addition to stuff that is packaged to go. They also have some food there, so there's tons of options. Oh, there's a freaking arcade in Mars as well. It's a very kind of organically grown space. I always talk about Burial being an organically grown space and breweries like that have expanded out. But it really is just like there's a whole bunch of connected rooms and stuff in Mars, and one of them is an arcade, and it's just free play arcade games. There's like 20 or 30 different cabinets in there.
Dang.
So yeah, no, it's like legit. There's a lot going on in there, and I would definitely love to get back there, and I'm kind of bummed that I didn't get to go back there last time I was in town.
You'll be back in Chicago. You're there like every other month.
That's very true. So while I was at Mars and I was just talking to people there, one of them told me about Maria's Community Bar, which is actually the place that the origins and the idea for Mars originated. The people were working at Maria's Community Bar, and they said, we need to open up a brewery, and that's where the idea and eventually the genesis of Mars came to. So I went to Maria's 2 or 3 times that week and had some food. They have a nice little food kind of restaurant there. They're kind of attached to. They're not 100% associated with, but they might as well be kind of thing. And had some really good like sausages there, and I had I think like a flatbread pizza or something there as well. But their beer selection at their 2 bars was really strong. There was some resident culture from here in Charlotte up there, and
Weird.
that really caught my attention. But in addition to that, a great selection of Chicago local stuff. And if you're on that kind of south of the downtown kind of Chicago, I would really encourage this to be one of your first stops if you want to get in a whole bunch of different Chicago area beers. That's Maria's Community Bar. Another spot that I had a chance to check out, we've talked about in the past a brewery called Off Color, and you and I actually went to their original brewery warehouse long ago.
Not supposed to be there.
We were not supposed to be there, but John was a nice man, and he poured us beer out of his kegerator, so I'm eternally grateful for that. I was also super grateful in that he told me about Pequod's Pizza, which is the best deep dish pizza I've ever had in my life. So actually, after going to Pequod's on this trip, the next day I happened to go to Off Color's new location, which they call Mousetrap. This is kind of more downtown, and it's a more professional space in that they have a front door with their logo on it that you're allowed to go in whenever you want and not just knock on. Again, John, thank you so much for letting us into your brewery. But they had a great selection of stuff, including all the stuff you expect to see. Their saisons, they had dino s'mores, they had the coffee dino s'mores on. They had a beer called You Never Take Me Anywhere Nice, which is just hilarious, and I liked it, and it was very good. They didn't have food there per se, but they did have, connections with the neighbors and stuff that you could bring food in, and just a really comfortable, awesome place. And I highly encourage you checking out Off Color's Mousetrap is what they call it. Also, John, the head brewer, was there, and I thanked him for Pequods. And he was like, yeah, I vaguely remember that. Y'all were all right.
I mean, I feel like it's worth saying that it's called the Mousetrap because all of their beer is themed around their little grain mouse logo.
Oh, yeah, very true.
So it's not just...
No actual mice were trapped in that brewery while I was there.
I mean,
That I know
there
of.
have
That I know
probably
of.
been some mice trapped in that brewery. It's an industrial space in a city, I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm. Another one that I checked out in Chicago, and this is just one that I got a tip on from somebody, is a place called Alulu, A-L-U-L-U. And this is down in the Pilsen neighborhood, which is kind of southern side of Chicago as well, kind of between Midway. It's actually right around the corner from Mars, now that I'm thinking about it. I don't know why I didn't just say that, other than that you don't really have any reference for that yet. But it's over there. So Alulu is a smaller brew pub that just got going in the last, I think, half year or so. They've been around that long. And their beer selection is really kind of running the gamut of everything. They've got IPAs, they got pales, lagers, they do some Berliner Weiss and some other fun stuff like that. The one in particular that really rocked my world was a sour called Locus Pocus.
That's a fun name.
That is a fun name. And this is a kettle sour that was done with black currants and vanillas. Yes, that sounds very familiar in terms of, I talked about that one from Unane recently when I was, I guess, talking about the north side of Chicago a few episodes ago. But very similar kind of thing, just this really awesome kind of cobbler-ish flavor almost in a real nice, rich sour. The currants are obviously a flavor that you don't get in a lot of stuff, but I guess in a lot more stuff now.
I mean, currant is a classic flavor, but it's not one that we get in America a ton.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get more currant-flavored stuff in Europe.
But I am here to say that it was quite nice. They also had a pretty good goza that was Peruvian salt, coriander, and passion fruit added during the fermentation. And this one was done with, like, Norwegian ale yeast. So they're really trying a lot of different stuff and, you know, a lot of different things with the recipes to see what comes out. They also do food. I had another really good chicken sandwich there that was, I think it was like a Nashville hot chicken kind of inspired thing.
You get a lot of hot chicken.
I do like hot chicken a lot. I was also in Nashville recently, and I did go to Hattie B's twice. So good. So Alulu is my kind of hot tip for the up-and-coming thing in kind of that southern half of Chicago-ish right now.
I'm kind of curious. If they're doing a bunch of kettle sours, I'm wondering if they're going to do a full-blown souring program, if they're going to keep it, because kettle sours are sort of the quick way to sour stuff.
I sure hope so. It seems like there's some people at this place that know what they're doing.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were talking about those Unane ones. I would venture to guess that's a full-blown souring program. That's not a kettle sour program.
Oh, yes. I want to go back to Onane very badly. So, yeah, check out Alulu, A-L-U-L-U. They are on Untapped as a verified venue, so you can check out their menu right now.
Love it. Love verified venues. Wish everybody who had a good beer bar would verify their venue so their menu's updated. It would be excellent.
And finally, I was in Atlanta last week for a good long while, and I had a chance to check out some stuff on the north side of Atlanta that I've been meaning to for a while. I started my week at Reformation Brewery up in Woodstock. This is one I wanted to go to for a while because I heard that they had a pretty good board game community up on that side of town, and I know that they were doing a monthly board game night that turned into, I think, bi-weekly, and now it's every week. And I wandered in with some friends, some coworkers that were down there for work as well, and we met this guy named Josh. You can look him up on Instagram under the handle Your Weekly Games, and Josh has actually been working with Reformation on developing a board game library. This is something I was super excited about, and if you saw it on my Instagram, they've actually got a library of maybe about 100 board games of all sorts of different stuff. They've got all the way from your Catans, your Carcassones, your Exploding Kittens, The Mind was there, but there was a bunch of new stuff in there as well. Like I saw Victorian Masterminds in there. They have Terraforming Mars and Gizmos and Azul and like a bunch of other really awesome board games that you don't really expect to see in your everyday at the brewery board game collection. You know, you expect to see maybe if you're lucky they'll have a Catan or something or a Ticket to Ride, but they're really doing an awesome job developing and cultivating this library with new, current, exciting titles. On the Tuesday I was in there, they actually had a Keyforge night, which I'm so bummed that I didn't bring any of my decks because I totally would have won a game ever. I probably wouldn't have won at all. But they had 14 people in there for Keyforge night. They were doing organized play with prize support and all the Fantasy Flight support, and it was really cool to see that culture thriving. We don't really kind of run into Keyforge Night a lot over on this side of town. I know Carolina Tabletop down in Pineville does, but that is an hour away from us and kind of a pain to get onto a regular night.
I think Parker does it as well, but they do it on a Monday, which is just not a night that generally works for us.
Monday's not getting out on a Monday night. That's just the life. But everything at Reformation was really geared towards board gaming. Great tables, great lighting. They're putting in some food there. The beer selection is also really solid as well. I had a lot of great different IPAs, some pale ales, and some other fun stuff. So I super was excited to see Reformation and how far they've come in terms of the board gaming side of brewery love as well.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to ask me for a brewery that I associate with having a thriving board game night, I'd probably say Reformation. I always follow the Southeast Board Game Geek thread in the forums, and they have stuff up all the time about the Reformation game night, so it was good to see that it actually lives up to what I was expecting of it.
Yeah, so if you're in town on, I think, Tuesday nights is when they have the regular gaming night, or if you just want to follow Your Weekly Games on Instagram, you can find out more information there for sure. But Reformation Brewery, high five. Y'all are doing some great stuff. I had time to go by one of my very favorites in the area, Orpheus. They're not on the north side of Atlanta, but I want to talk about it anyway because I find it's relevant that they now have 24 taps on at Orpheus. It's relevant because a year ago, before laws changed in Georgia that they couldn't serve straight up pours at their tap room, they had to do the special like tours with tickets and free samples. They had, I think, 6 or 7 things on, maybe like 8.
That's what I would have guessed as well.
And when we were there last, they had 12 on. And we're like, oh, wow, this is great. Look how much more they have. And now they have a second TV displaying even more stuff because they are able to have so much more in their tap room now, which is also great because they had 6 different versions of their Imperial Stout on, some of which had ghost peppers in them. It was really good. I'm sorry you're just hearing about this now and I didn't bring a crowler home.
Why you no bring it home?
They didn't have crowlers for me of it. I'm sad. But yeah, I just love that, and Orpheus rocks. Go check out Orpheus. The other 2 that I checked out on the north side of Atlanta, I went to Roswell, Georgia, on a tip from one of the Orpheus taproom employees there. They told me to go to Variant Brewing up in Roswell. And I'm like, okay, well, I've got nothing to do on this particular day. I'm going to go up to that. And I drive up, and their parking lot is closed. And I'm like, well, what's going to go on here? So I park in like the next parking lot over. They say, yeah, it's totally okay for you to park here. Don't worry about it. All of Roswell's got this open streets thing tonight. It's kind of like a, open air kind of block party for the whole downtown. And I'm like, well, I seem to have stumbled in at the correct time for this day.
You did that a lot on these trips.
It was a lot of just dumb luck getting into great events, but that's just kind of how this travel was. It worked out well. But Variant had some really strong IPAs, really good New England style IPAs. They also had a 0 IBU IPA that was called like Theoretical Zero, I believe it was called. And we've seen this once or twice before. And I guess what that is that all of the hops were added in late edition so that the alpha acids weren't actually brought into the boil. And they're just in there for aroma and a little bitterness flavor. I don't really understand the whole 0 IPA thing or the 0 IBU thing, but it was decent. It wasn't as good as other IPAs that they had, but I got to applaud them for at least trying a cool, crazy thing.
I'm not 100% sure that still counts as an IPA.
I also, we then wandered over to Gate City Brewing Company, which is a few blocks away, because why not? It's an open streets party. You're going to go in at both of the breweries, right?
Yeah.
But ended up over there, and this was a really, really big space. Kind of this warehouse that's in an alleyway, and they had pulled the alleyway out.
I'm sorry, what?
They had pulled the party out into the alleyway and had basically a whole bunch of free open spaces. And there was probably like 300 people at this brewery when I was in there on this Thursday night. And they had a whole ton of stuff. I think they had maybe 24 different taps, 18 taps. That's what it was. I'm kind of cheating and looking at the information on Untapped right now as we're doing this because they're also a verified venue. Good job, Gate City. You did it. You did it so good. One that I was really excited about was this Party Starter, which is a fruited sour that was raspberry, blueberry, and black currants. Again, seeing those currants kind of coming into a lot of beers these days. Just really nice tart flavor to it, and I enjoyed it a good bit. The other thing that I had from them that was really exciting was Citrus Maximus, which is an India Pale Lager. Tropical citrus flavors. It's got a little bit of stone fruit flavor, but it was entirely Citra, and you know how I'm about Citra in that I like it a whole lot.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one out of the two, I would say honestly go to Variant because it just had a really exciting space. The space was super bright and very pretty, but if you're looking for a night out kind of spot, Gate City is probably going to be better for that. Just obviously bigger space, kind of like I'm trying to think of what a good comparison is. Edmund's Oast down in Charleston that I talked about a few weeks back with that kind of, it's in this open park kind of area, and there's a whole bunch of courtyard area that you wander out, and obviously it's a real attractive place for a lot of people to go and hang out and have a good fun time.
That being said, I did say you had to pick one, but if you're going to go to Roswell, Georgia, you can probably...
Yeah, you can
go
do
to
both. You can definitely do both. And you can go to a place called Standard on the way and get pizza, which was pretty solid, and they also had good beer there too. So that's nice. It was right between the two breweries. You got beer.
How did you make it all the way from... You wouldn't be able to make it from one brewery to the other brewery without stopping to get a beer and a pizza.
I mean, that's kind of the truth of life, isn't it? You just got to take a break every now and then and eat an entire pizza. I didn't eat an entire pizza. I had 2 slices. I promise. I was good.
Good.
So yeah, that's my kind of beer odyssey of the last few weeks. If you've checked out any of those places, or if I missed anything that I should have gone to, please feel free to tell me about them on the Slack or on the Board Game Geek Guild. That's the places where you can do that. But other than that, I think it's time for us to take a move on. Or do you have any questions, any final thoughts that you want to ask me about my beer odyssey? Give me one good question to kind of ruminate on.
Okay. We've talked about Chicago a whole bunch of times on this podcast for beer travelers. We, I think, have done 2 other. Like, if you only get to go to one spot in Chicago, where is it?
Holy moly. Now? One spot in all of the greater Chicagoland area?
For beer.
For beer.
For beer.
Just for the beer.
Just for the beer.
Brewery or non-brewery?
One spot.
One spot, Beer Temple. I think the Beer Temple, the bar...
That's right, they serve there.
The bar by Chicago. Now that they serve and they're not just a bottle shop, that beer list is phenomenal. And it's got one of the best bottle shops in the whole region right there. And you can just go to Kuma's.
No, that's 2 spots.
Darn. So that... And
I will be at Kuma's while you're at Beer Temple eating a hamburger.
Very well. And Maria's as well, because they have all the beer.
Okay.
And probably also Unane and Hubbard's Cave.
I said one spot.
I mean, I would go to Mars as well. Chicago's too much for one place.
I mean, yeah, that's why it's an entire region.
All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that. If you have any questions, again, hit me up on the internet. I can tell you more about any and all of those places if you would like to know about them. That is it. I'm stalling. Let's go to some bump music.
No. Before we leave the beer segment entirely, I do want to talk about a poll that I had put up on the Slack channel, not the Slack channel, on the Board Game Geek Guild.
The Guild.
That is going to inform future beer segments going forward, and I just wanted to let everybody know that I looked at the results of that, and I had put up a poll talking about whether anybody was interested in hearing about the different types of hops in beer segments, because we've talked about different styles of beer. I wanted to know if anybody was interested in the specifics about different types of hops, and overwhelmingly people said that they were. And if you are bummed out by that result, you should have voted, because only a very small number of people said they didn't want to hear about the different types of hops. So starting after Gen Con, we are going to be doing a bunch of beer segments that talk about different types of hops, how you can use them in different types of beers, whether you can use them in the boil or in dry hopping or all kinds of stuff, what flavors they've got to go with them. So we are going to be doing a lot of that in beer segments.
Woo!
I won't do them like all the way straight through. There will be some to break them up, but that is a thing that we are going to be doing, and I really appreciate everybody weighing in on whether they were interested in it or not.
Yay! Well, cool. A little hop exploration coming our way.
Indeed.
All right, now it's time for that aforementioned bump music.
Indeed.
Want a second opinion on some of the games we talked about on this episode? Check out some other great content creators at punchboardmedia.com. For today's final round, I'm going to build off what we talked about in the prior episode when we talked about our 2018 Redux. Very quick and simple question. What 2018 games did you find in the last few months that you missed the first time around? Tons and tons and tons of silence in the chat. We did have 2 responses, though, and we will, of course, go into those. Danielle, will you give us the first one?
Yes. Paul and Bowden said quacks. I slept so hard on it.
Quack. Don't sleep on your board games. They're not comfortable.
Or ducks.
Or ducks. Don't sleep on your ducks.
Unless they're down.
Oh, geez. That was good. That was really good.
No, it wasn't, but that's fine. What'd Jeff have to say?
Jeff said, Teotihuacan. I'm a fan of Zulkin, so when I saw Teotihuacan by the same designer, it hit my want list. I saw Teotihuacan being played at Shucks 2018. Knowing nothing about the way the game plays, I watched for half an hour. It looked really difficult and expensive. However, about a month ago, I found it at a local game store at a good price, so I took the plunge. I learned the rules, then tried it out solo by using a fan-made Teobot app. Then I played it 6 games in 8 days.
Dang.
I had to force myself to put it away so I could play other games. When this comes out again, it will be for more than one play. I kind of definitely understand that feeling on Teotihuacan. I want to get that game played. I just know that it's going to take me a minute to read those rules again. It kind of actually makes me think I should try out this app, and it'll teach me how to play the game.
Yeah,
and it'll whoop my butt.
We've played it once with the basic rules, but I know I have heard that the other side of the board, the sort of modular side of the board, is way more exciting, so I'm excited to learn that.
Ooh. Well, maybe you'll hear from us on that one in the next few episodes if we get a chance to do some Teotihuacan. Maybe not the next few episodes.
There we go.
Yeah. Speaking of the next few episodes, as I said, our next episode is the 2019 Gen Con hype list. I've already put up the final round thread for that one, and it is simply, I want to know what you're most excited about, what games are on your radar going into Gen Con this year, whether you're going or not. You know, if there's something that you want us to check out, let us know, and we'll take a look at it and probably talk about it at some point, because Gen Con is right around the corner. Are you ready, Danielle?
No.
Are you ready to start getting ready, Danielle?
Maybe?
Well, are you ready to finish this episode at least?
I guess.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Draft Mechanic. Once again, draftmechanic.net. It's your one-stop shop for all your Draft Mechanic needs. You can go on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, @Draft Mechanic is where you'll find that information.
We also have a Board Game Geek Guild. That is guild number 2470. So if you want to let us know what you're thinking about, that is the place to do it.
Mm-hmm. You can send us an email at draftmechanic@gmail.com if that tickles your fancy. And of course, you can jump on our Slack channel if you want to get in on the final round or just talk to us about board games, beer, and any other thing. Maybe make some puns here and there. Also, Draft Mechanic t-shirts are available at Redbubble, and you can go to the Draft Mechanic website and click the button up at the top. There's a banner up at the top that says Get Your Draft Mechanic t-shirts here, and that's where you can go to get your new Thematic Euros t-shirt, and you can wear that at Gen Con, and I'll see it, and I'll be like, yo, you're wearing that shirt, and I'll give you a high five.
If you happen to be in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, our next meetup is going to be on Tuesday, August 20th at Salud Cerveceria. We are, again, going to be skipping the August 1st meetup, which would be the first Thursday, which would be at Good Road Cider Works. We do that every other month. Not every other month, but on the months that are not August, we have a first Thursday meetup, but since we'll be at Gen Con, we're not doing it on August 1st. We will see you on the 20th.
Yeah. Draft Mechanic is sponsored by Grey Fox Games. Visit greyfoxgames.com and sign up for their newsletter for the latest. Grey Fox Games, quality games, cleverly crafted.
As always, I would like to remind our listeners to please game responsibly and tell them that I'll see them back here in 1 week for another round.
Oh, it's time for the high! Good night, everybody.
Night.
Draft Mechanic episode 105 was recorded on Sunday, July 21st, 2019 in front of a live and very sleepy studio cats.
Beauty is in your eyes, you are the beholder. You render me stricken. Do not go gently into that gutter line.
Hello, Chris Whitpan here from Game All Night. That's right, Game All Night is a late-night board game talk show available in video form and also in a podcast. Check us out as we have celebrities on the couch from all corners of the industry. Publishers, producers, artists, content creators, you name it, we try to get them on the show. Be sure to check us out at Game All Night, spelled N-I-T-E, show.com.
Punchboard Media,
where we all bring something to the table.
Pull up a chair
at punchboardmedia.com.